The fundamental notion behind model driven engineering is that completely automated transformation of models to code should be possible. This is possible using a subset of UML called executable UML or XUML. Features of executable UML to create an executable subset of UML, the number of model types has therefore been dramatically reduced to the three key types: domain models that identify the principal concerns in a system. They are defined using UML class diagrams and include objects, attributes, and associations. Class models, in which classes are defined along with their attributes and operations. State models, in which a state diagram is associated with each class and is used to describe the life cycle of the class. The dynamic behavior of the system may be specified declaratively using the object constraint language OCL, or may be expressed using UML's action language. Design and implementation. The rational unified process, a modern generic process derived from the work on the UML and associated process, brings together aspects of the three generic process models discussed previously, normally described from three perspectives: a dynamic perspective that shows phases over time, a static perspective that shows process activities, a practice perspective that suggests good practice. Phases in the rational unified process. See the figure. Inception. Establish the business case for the system. You should identify all external entities, peoples, and systems that will interact with the system and define these interactions. You then use this information to assess the contribution that the system makes to business. If this contribution is minor, then the project may be cancelled after this phase. Elaboration. Develop an understanding of the problem domain and system architecture. The goals of the elaboration phase are to develop an understanding of the problem domain, establish an architectural framework for the system, develop the project plan, and identify key project risks. On completion of this phase, you should have a requirements model for the system, which may be a set of UML use cases and an architectural description and a development plan for the software. Construction, system design, programming, and testing. Testing parts of the system are developed in parallel and integrated during this phase. On completion of this phase, you should have a working software system and associated documentation that is ready for delivery to users. Transition. Deploy the system in its operating environment. The final phase of the RUP is concerned with moving the system from the development community to the user community and making it work in a real environment. This is something that is ignored in most software process models, but is in fact an expensive and sometimes problematic activity. On completion of this phase, you should have a documented software system that is working correctly in its operational environment. Group iteration. In phase iteration, each phase is iterative with results developed incrementally. Cross phase iteration, as shown by the loop in the loop model, the whole set of the phases may be enacted incrementally. Static workflow in the rational unified process. See the figure. Group good practice. Develop software iteratively, plan increments based on customer priorities and deliver highest priority increments first. Manage requirements explicitly, document customer requirements and keep track of changes to these requirements. Use component based architectures. Organize the system architecture as a set of reusable components. Visually model software. Use a graphical UML model to present static and dynamic views of the software. Verify software quality. Ensure that the software meets organizational quality standards. Control changes to software. Manage software changes using a change management system and configuration management tools. Now let us see design principles. Component based development. Component-based software engineering is an approach to software development that relies on the reuse of entities called software components. It emerged from the failure of object-oriented development to support effective reuse. Single object classes are too detailed and specific. Components are more abstract than object classes and can be considered to be standalone service providers. They can exist as standalone entities. Now let us see CBSE essentials. Independent components specified by their interfaces, component standards to facilitate component integration, middleware that provides support for component interoperability, a development process that is geared to reuse. Design principle. Components are independent, so do not interface with each other. Component implementations are hidden. Communication is through well-defined interfaces. Component platforms are shared and reduce development costs. Now let us see component standards. Standards need to be established so that components can communicate with each other and interoperate. Unfortunately, several competing component standards were established. Sun's Enterprise, Java Beans, Microsoft's Common .NET, Cobra's CCM. In practice, these multiple standards have hindered the uptake of CBSE. It is impossible for components developed using different approaches to work together. Component definitions. Council and Hinman. A software component is a software element that conforms to a component model and can be independently deployed and composed without modifications according to a composition standard. Now, Zippersky. A software component is a unit of composition with contractually specified interfaces and explicit context dependencies. Only a software component can be deployed independently and is object to composition by third parties. See the figure. Component characteristics. Component interfaces. Provide interface define the services that are provided by the component to other components. This interface essentially is the component API. It defines the methods that can be called by the user of the component. Requires the interface. Defines the services that specifies what services must be made available for the component to execute as specified. This does not compromise the independent or deployability of a component because the requires interface does not define how these services should be provided. See the figure. Now let us see component models. A component model is a definition of standards for component implementation, documentation and deployment. Examples of component models: EJB model, Enterprise, Java Beans, Plus model, .NET model, Cobra component model. The component model specifies how interfaces should be defined and the elements that should be included in an interface definitions. See the basic elements of a component model as shown in the figure. Interfaces. Components are defined by specifying their interfaces. The component model specifies how the interfaces should be defined and the elements such as operation names, parameters and exceptions which should be included in the interface definition. Usage. In order for a component to be distributed and accessed remotely, they need to have an unique name or handle associated with them. This has to be globally unique. Deployment. The component model includes a specification of how components should be packaged for deployment as independent executable entities. Now let us see CBSE processes. CBSE processes are software processes that support component-based software engineering. They take into account the possibilities of the reuse and the different process activities involved in developing and using reusable components. Development for reuse. This process is concerned with developing components or services that will be reused in other applications. It usually involves generalizing existing components. Development with reuse. This process is the process of developing new applications using existing components and services. Supporting processes. Component acquisition is the process of acquiring components for reuse or development into a reusable component. It may involve accessing locally developed components or services or finding these components from an external source. Component management is concerned with managing a company's reusable components and ensuring that they are properly cataloged, stored, and made available for reuse. Component certification is the process of checking a component and certifying that it meets its specifications. An object-oriented design process. Structured object-oriented design processes involves developing a number of different system models. They require a lot of effort for development and maintenance of these models, and for small systems this may not be cost effective. However, for large systems developed by different group, design models are an important communication mechanisms. Process stages. There are a variety of different object-oriented design processes that depend on the organization using the process. Common activities in these processes include define the context and modes of the use of the system, design the system architecture, identify the principal system objects, develop design models, specify object interfaces. Process illustrated here using a design for a wilderness weather station. System context and interactions. Understanding the relationship between the software that is being designed and its external environment is essential for deciding how to provide the required system functionality and how to structure the system to communicate with its environment. Understanding of the context also lets you establish the boundaries of the system. Setting the system boundaries help you decide what features are implemented in the system being designed and what features are in other associated systems. Context and interaction models. A system context model is a structural model that demonstrates the other systems in the environment of the system being developed. An interaction model is a dynamic model that shows how the system interacts with its environment it is used. System context for weather station. See the figure. Weather station use cases. Use case description, report weather. See the figures. Architectural design. Once interactions between the system and its environment have been understood, you use this information for designing the system architecture. You identify the major components that make up the system and their interactions, and then may organize the components using an architectural pattern such as a layered or client-server model. The weather station is composed of independent subsystems that communicate by broadcasting messages on a common infrastructure. See the figure. The weather station is composed of independent subsystems that communicate by broadcasting messages on a common infrastructure. Each subsystem listens for messages on that infrastructure and picks up the messages that are intended for them. For example, when the communication subsystem receives a control command such as shut down, the command is picked up by each of the other subsystems, which then shut themselves down in the correct way. The key benefit of this architecture is that it is easy to support different configurations of the subsystems because the sender of the message does not need to address the message to particular system. Now let us see architecture of data collection system. See the figure. The transmitter and the receiver objects are concerned with managing communications, and the weather data object encapsulates the information that is collected from the instrument and transmitted to the weather information system. Object class identification. Identifying object class is often a difficult part of object oriented design. There is no magic formula for object identification. It relies on the skill, experience, and domain knowledge of the system designers. Object identification is an iterative process. You are likely to get it right first time. Approaches to identification. Use a grammatical approach based on natural language description of the system used in OOD method. Base the identification on tangible things in the application domain. Use a behavioral approach and identify objects based on what participates in what behavior. Use a scenario-based analysis. The objects, attributes, and methods in each scenario are identified. Weather station description. A weather station is a package of software-controlled instruments which collects data, performs some data processing, and transmits this data for further processing. The instruments include air and ground thermometers, an anemometer, a wind vane, a barometer, and a rain gauge. Data is collected periodically. Whether a command is issued to transmit the weather data, the weather station processes and summarizes the collected data. The summarized data is transmitted to the mapping computer when a request is received. Now let us see weather station object classes. Object class identification in the weather station system may be based on the tangible hardware and data in the system: ground thermometer, anemometer, barometer, and the application domain objects that are hardware objects related to the instruments in the system. Weather station. The basic interface of the weather station to its environment. It therefore reflects the interactions identified in the use case model. Weather data encapsulates the summarized data from the instruments. See the figure. Now let us see design models. Design models show the objects and object classes and relationship between these entities. Static models describe the static structure of the system in terms of object classes and relationships. Dynamic models describe the dynamic interactions between objects. Examples of the design models: subsystem models that show logical groupings of objects into coherent subsystems. Sequence models that show the sequence of the object interactions. State machine models that show how individual objects change their state in response to events. Other models include use case models, aggregation models, generalization models, etc. Subsystem models show how the design is organized into logically related group of objects. In the UML, these are shown using packages and encapsulation construct. This is a logical model. The actual organization of the object in the system may be different. Sequence models. Sequence models show the sequence of object interactions that take place. Objects are arranged horizontally across the top. Time is represented vertically, so models are read top to bottom. Interactions are represented by labeled arrows. Different styles of arrow represents different types of interaction. A thin rectangle is an object. Lifeline represents the time when the object is the controlling object in the system. The SATCOMS object receives a request from the weather information system to collect a weather report from weather station. It acknowledges receipt of this request. The stick arrowhead on the sent message indicates that the external system does not wait for a reply but can carry on with other processing. SATCOMS sends a message to weather station via a satellite link to create a summary of the collected weather data. Again, the stick arrowhead indicates that SATCOMS does not suspend itself waiting for a replay. weather station sends a message to a comes link object to summarize the weather data. In this case, the squared off style of arrowhead indicates that the instance of the weather station object class waits for a relay. Comes link calls the summarize method in the object weather data and waits for a reply. The weather data summary is computed and returned to weather station via the comes link object. Weather station then calls the SATCOMS object to transmit the summarized data to the weather information system through the satellite communication system. Now let us see state diagrams. State diagrams are used to show how objects respond to different service requests and state transitions triggered by these requests. State diagrams are useful high-level models of a system or an object's runtime behavior. You don't usually need a state diagram for all of the objects in the system. Many of the objects in the system are relatively simple and a state model adds unnecessary detail to the design. See the figure. If the system state is shut down, then it can respond to a restart, a reconfigure, or a power save message. The unlabeled arrow with the black blob indicates that the shutdown state is the initial state. A restart message causes a transition to normal operation. Both the power save and reconfigure messages cause a transition to a state in which the system reconfigures itself. The state diagram shows the reconfiguration is only allowed if the system has been shut down. In the running state, the system expects further messages. If a shutdown message is received, the object returns to the shutdown state. If a report weather message is received, the system moves to the summarizing state. When the summary is complete, the system moves to the transmitting state where the information is transmitted to the remote system. It then returns to the running state. If a report status message is received, the system moves to the testing state, then the transmitting state before returning to the running state. If a signal from the clock is received, the system moves to the collecting state where it collects data from the instruments. Each instrument is instructed in turn to collect its data from the associated sensors. If a remote control message is received, the system moves to a controlled state in which it responds to a different set of messages from the remote control room. These are not shown on this diagram. Now let us see interface specification. Object interfaces have to be specified so that the objects and the other components can be designed in parallel. Designers should avoid designing the interface representations but should hide this in the object itself. Object may have several interfaces which are viewpoints on the methods provided. The UML uses class diagrams for interface specification, but Java may also be used. See the figure. Now let us see design patterns. A design pattern is a way of reusing abstract knowledge about a problem and its solution. A pattern is a description of the problem and the essence of its solution. It should be sufficiently abstract to be reused in different settings. Pattern descriptions usually make use of the object-oriented characteristics such as inheritance and polymorphism. Now let us see pattern elements. Name. A meaningful pattern identifier, problem description, solution description, not a concrete design but a template for a design solution that can be instantiated in different ways. Consequences, the results and trade-offs of applying the pattern. Now let us see the observer pattern. Name observer. Description separates the display of the object state from the object itself. Problem description used when multiple displays of the state is needed. Solution description, see slide with UML description. Consequences, optimizations to enhance display performance are impractical. See the figure. Now let us see multiple display using the observer pattern. See the figure here. The four essential elements of design patterns were defined by the gang of four in their pattern. A name that is meaningful reference to the pattern, a description of the problem area that explains when the pattern may be applied, a solution description of the parts of the design solution, their relationships and their responsibilities. This is not a concrete design description, it is a template for a design solution that can be instantiated in different ways. This is often expressed graphically and shows the relationship between the objects and object classes in the solution. A statement of the consequences, the results and the trade-offs of applying the pattern. This can help designers understand whether or not a pattern can be used in the particular situation. A UML model of the observer pattern. See the figure. Now let us see design problems. To use patterns in your design, you need to recognize that any design problem you are facing may have an associated pattern that can be applied. Tell several objects that the state of some other object has changed. Observer pattern. Tidy up the interfaces to a number of related objects that have often been developed incrementally. Packed pattern. Provide a standard way of assessing the elements in a collection irrespective of how that collection is implemented. Iterator pattern. Allow for the possibility of extending the functionality of an existing class at runtime. Decorator pattern. Implementation issues. Focus here is not on programming, although this is obviously important, but on other implementation issues that are often not covered in the programming texts. Reuse. Most modern software is constructed by reusing existing components or systems. When you are developing software, you should make as much use as possible of existing code. Configuration management. During the development process, you have to keep track of the many different versions of each software component in a configuration management system. Host target development. Production software does not usually execute on the same computer as the software development environment. Rather, you develop it on one computer, the host system, and execute it on a separate computer, the target system. Now let us see reuse. From 1960 to 1990, most new software was developed from scratch by writing all code in a high-level programming language. The only significant reuse of software was the reuse of functions and objects in programming language libraries. Cost and schedule pressure mean that this approach became increasingly unviable, especially for commercial and internet-based systems. An approach to development based around the reuse of existing software emerged and is now generally used for business and scientific software. Reuse levels. The abstraction level. At this level, you don't reuse software directly but use knowledge of the successful abstractions in the design of your software. The object level. At this level, you directly reuse objects from a library rather than writing the code yourself. The component level. Components are collections of objects and object classes that you reuse in application systems. The system level. At this level, you reuse entire application systems. Now let us see reuse costs. The cost of the time spent in looking for software to reuse and assessing whether or not it meets your needs. Where applicable, the cost of buying the reusable software for large off-the-shelf systems, these costs can be very high. The cost of adapting and configuring the reusable software components or systems to reflect the requirements of the system that you are developing. The cost of integrating reusable software elements with each other if you are using software from different sources and with the new code that you have developed. Configuration management. Configuration management is the name given to the general process of managing a changing software system. The aim of the configuration management is to support the system integration process so that all developers can access the project code and document in a controlled way, find out what changes have been made and compile and link components to create a system. Version management, where support is provided to keep track of different versions of software components. Version management system include facilities to coordinate development by several programmers. System integration, where support is provided to help the developers define what versions of components are used to create each version of a system. This description is then used to build a system automatically by compiling and linking the required components. Problem tracking, where support is provided to allow users to report bugs and other problems and to allow all developers to see who is working on these problems and when they are fixed. Host target development. Most software is developed on one computer, the host, but runs on separate machine, the target. More generally, we can talk about a development platform and an execution platform. A platform is more than just hardware. It includes the installed operating system plus other supporting software such as database management system or for the development platforms and interactive development environment. Development platform usually has different installed software than execution platform. These platforms may have different architectures. Now let us see development platform tools. An integrated compiler and syntax directed editing system that allows you to create, edit and compile code. A language debugging system, graphical editing tools such as tools to edit UML models, testing tools such as JUnit that can automatically run a set of tests on a new version of the program. Project support tools that help you organize the code for different development projects. Integrated development environment IDEs. Software development tools are often grouped to create an integrated development environment IDE. An IDE is a set of software tools that supports different aspects of software development within some common framework and user interface. IDEs are created to support development in a specific programming language such as Java. The language IDE may be developed specially or may be an instantiation of general purpose IDE with specific language support tools. Now let us see component or system deployment factors. If a component is designed for specific hardware architecture or released on some other software system, it must obviously be deployed on a platform that provides the required hardware and software support. High availability systems may require components to be deployed on more than one platform. This means that in the event of platform failure, an alternative implementation of the component is available. If there is a high level of communication traffic between components, it usually makes sense to deploy them on the same platform or on platforms that are physically close to one another. This reduces the delay. Reduces the delay between the time a message is sent by one component and received by the another. Now let us see open source development. Open source development is the approach to software development in which the source code of the software system is published and volunteers are invited to participate in the development process. Its roots are in the Free Software Foundation www.fsf.org, which advocates that source code should not be proprietary but rather should always be available for users to examine and modify as they wish. Open source software extended this idea by using the internet to recruit a much larger population of volunteer developers. Many of them are also users of the code. The best known open source product is of course the Linux operating system, which is widely used as a server system and increasingly as a desktop environment. Other important open source products are Java, the Apache web server, and the MySQL database management system. Open source issues: should the product that is being developed make use of open source components? Should an open source approach be used for the software's development? Open source business. More and more product companies are using an open source approach to development. Their business model is not reliant on selling a software product but on selling support for that product. They believe that involving the open source community will allow software to be developed more cheaply, more quickly, and will create a community of users for the software. Now let us see open source licensing. Fundamental principles of open source development is that source code should be freely available. This does not mean that anyone can do as they wish with that code. Legally, the developer of the code, either a company or an individual, still owns the code. They can place restrictions on how it is used by including legally binding conditions in an open source software license. Some open source developers believe that if an open source component is used to develop a new system, then that system should also be open source. Others are willing to allow their code to be used without this restriction. The developed systems may be proprietary and sold as proprietary and sold as a closed source system. License models. The GNU General Public License GPL, this is a so-called reciprocal license. That means that if you use open source software that is licensed under the GPL license, then you must make that software open source. The GNU Lesser General Public License LGPL is a variant of the GPL license where you can write components that link to open source code without having to publish the source of these components. The Berkeley Standard Distribution BSD license, this is a non-reciprocal license, which means you are not obliged to republish any changes or modifications made to open source code. You can include the code in proprietary systems that are sold. Now let us see license management. Establish a system for maintaining information about open source components that are downloaded and used. Be aware of the different types of licenses and understood how a component is licensed before it is used. Be aware of the evolution pathways for components. Educate people about open source, having auditing systems in place, participating in the open source community.